Welcome to today's episode of Sunny's Silver Linings. Sunny's guest today is Kendra Lee, president of KLA Group. In this episode, Kendra talks about common mistakes MSPs make in terms of hiring, lessons learned in the onboarding process, retaining top talent, and so much more. And now, your host, the founder and CEO of IT by Design, Sunny Kayla.
Hi, Kendra. Welcome to the show.
Well, hi, Sunny. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I truly appreciate you joining my podcast today. And I know we have been talking about this. Finally, we're doing this. And it was so great to see you at Evolve just last week. And so glad that you're here. What are the common mistakes that you see MSPs making in terms of hiring and onboarding top sales talent?
You know, Sunny, the number one mistake I see happens because MSPs are not confident in their sales abilities. So they feel like they don't understand sales as a discipline, and they're not confident in their sales organization. So the biggest mistake that they make is just going and hiring somebody who was referred to them. They were told, oh, this is a great salesperson, or this sales manager, they really can manage people. You should hire them. And so they throw out the whole process they use to vet, say, technical people, and just hire this person that somebody has referred to them instead of looking at multiple candidates and really vetting, can this person do the job I needed to do? So that's the number one mistake. Number two behind it is not knowing what they want to hire. So they don't have a job description that they're hiring against. Mm-hmm. And instead, they get the candidate and they're so excited. Oh, wow, this person can make great phone calls. So rather than hire the account manager I thought I need, I'm going to hire this person who can do great calling and do appointment setting. Mm-hmm. Or, gee, I need a hunter, but boy, they look like they're great account managers and they've had some sales management experience, so I'll hire them. So that's the second mistake that I see. And the third is in their onboarding. And I know that we'll get into talking about that, but not having an onboarding plan where they can really nurture that person to be successful in the role, even if they come in with great skills. Mm-hmm. So those are the top three that we're seeing across MSPs. And it all stems from them not being confident in their own ability to have a sales organization within their company.
So let's talk about the number one. So what are some of the insights that you can share to help our MSP friends so that they can get better with number one?
Often, we don't want to ignore if we're given a referral to someone who could potentially be a great sales leader or sales rep. So we definitely want to interview them, but we also want to be open to who else might be out there and not just blanketly accept whoever referred you's opinion that this person is going to be great. You still want to go through your entire hiring process, which means you want to have a good, strong hiring process in place. You're still going to want to assess, do they have the capabilities? Will they truly sell? Do they have the desire, the commitment? How are they motivated? You still want to look at that person in their entirety and see, are they going to fit for the role that you want? Not just because somebody referred them. So that's one piece of advice that I would give.
Yeah. So what I hear you say is that don't skip your recruitment steps, your evaluation process, whatever that hiring process is to fill that role, just because that person is coming from a referral. So how do we address that as owners where we don't lose top talent just waiting for the second option?
Well, and that is a real concern in today's market. You know, people are getting applications and calling within an hour to talk to candidates because of what the market is today. So we don't want to lose top talent. My recommendation is we're going to move them through that whole hiring process, just like you talked about. We're also going to use an assessment tool that could validate what we're seeing in the hiring process. And if our hiring process and the assessment tool show us that this candidate absolutely could do the job, then I would not wait for the next candidate that might be referred. What the point is that I want to make about looking at multiple candidates is if you have the opportunity to have multiple candidates, which if you are posting on Indeed, even while everything is moving very quickly right now, you're going to get quite a number of people who are responding. So if you've got a great referral, at the same time, be running your ad and see what else comes up and put everybody through that process just as quickly. So we're not waiting for our recruiting team to find somebody else, because if they fit everything and we don't have someone, then we'll extend the offer. If we can, though, we're simultaneously going to be going out and seeing what's in the market that might come to me. I have to tell you, some of the best hires that we have seen are people that we never knew before. Yeah. And I love referrals. It's just, there are some really great candidates that are out there that you may never have met and could bring new insights into your organization that you just never would have gotten by hiring somebody that's already part of the same old network.
Yeah. So what I hear you say is that, yes, do look for option 2, option 3, and make the best choice out of 2 or 3 options. But if that other options are not available, or is, it should not be at the cost of losing that great candidate where they have, they are now meeting all the process checklist items. So go ahead and hire. Now let's get into a little bit more onboarding side. Like what are the greatest, what is the greatest lesson that you have learned in kind of sales onboarding process? So now we are done with the hiring. We adopted all the best practices to hire that top talent. Now, what are some of the things that we can do during the onboarding process? What are the mistakes that you see, and how can we prevent those mistakes?
The biggest mistake, whether you're hiring a sales leader or a salesperson, is assuming that, gee, they know how to manage salespeople. I don't need to do anything. They know how to sell. I'm just going to teach them ConnectWise and they should be able to sell, right? So the biggest mistake is assuming that they don't need any training. On average, you should plan that your onboarding training for a sales leader or a sales manager is going to be at least 90 days. Now, that's not 90 days of sitting in training. When I was trained by IBM in sales, I went and sat for 30 days in a class and learned all the ways to sell. You're not doing that, okay? We have activities that they're doing that continues their learning for at least 90 days while they are starting to do the job. You can expect that it's going to take 6 to 12 months for your salesperson to fully ramp. And the same is true of a sales leader. It's going to be a period of time before they're going to be operating at peak, which means you have to be continuing to manage them and you have to be continuing to provide that onboarding training.
Okay. So in terms of training, right? So I get it, like 30, 60, 90 day overall is so crucial for us to train people on systems, the sales process, if we have a sales process, making sure that they know our way of, moving that lead to close. and learning the product, learning all the obstacles and common objections and everything else. But the main issue that I see, especially in a small business setup, is owner not having time, or the person who is kind of now hiring, they have like their day-to-day, right? So IBM type of companies, you can have like, multiple people starting, and there are like a lot of learning and development resources. I mean, you work with a lot of MSPs and kind of coaching them to build their revenue engines. And what worked for you in terms of onboarding based on the resources that normally MSPs have to onboard these people that you suggest best in class MSPs can do?
When we are working with MSPs to build their onboarding plan, the first thing we say is, you can't do all this. They can't be the sole person doing it. And by the way, there is some responsibility for the person that is being hired to take on for their own training. So what you're going to do is, as you're outlining all the different areas that you mentioned, Sunny, the product training, what our sales process is, what our systems are, what tools we use, who our clients are, for each of those, you're going to look and think, who else knows about this? Where else do we have this? So I'll give you an example. When we're running marketing for MSPs, one of the things we've done is a whole lead gen strategy that outlines who are the target markets, who are the key decision makers that you're going after, what are the problems that they have. Well, a salesperson needs to know all of that. So you may have that living over in your marketing that either becomes a self-study for your salesperson, or you have your marketing person meet with the salesperson. The product training, yes, they need to know products. I always say an inch to an inch and a half deep, so they can talk about it. They don't need to be able to make it work. Yeah. Well, who can do that? Your VCIO, you may have an engineer. Yes, they're busy, but if you're dividing it up across the staff, now you're not fully responsible. No one staff person is fully responsible. And your new sales leader or salesperson gets to meet all these different people on your team. So it has multiple benefits. Don't try and do it all yourself. Really look and say, what do I have? And for systems, a lot of the systems that they have to use, there are tutorials. You also have your website available to you, any videos that you've created. So if you think about it, you've got a lot that's available. It's a matter of pulling it all together in a plan and determining, how am I going to drip that out to them so that they're learning, and they're learning enough to start doing their job.
Yeah. So what I hear you say is that the hiring managers, you could be the MSP owner, you could be the sales manager, but if your job is to hire that salesperson, and so you don't, it's more about taking ownership to build a plan for onboarding, right? And then making sure that who is going to do it. So systems training, maybe some like Office 365 to other trainings that person has to go through, can be done by IT. You mentioned marketing, okay, the marketing can do this. You just have to think about, you got to be the architecture of the onboarding plan, and then have someone manage it by putting people who should be training, product training to process training to all other trainings. As a small business owner or a sales manager, if your job is to hire, you want to make sure you're intentional about planning that onboarding, the timeline, and who is going to do what, and then kind of overall oversee it to make sure that it gets done right.
Yes. And with your new hire, you can give them responsibility for their own onboarding. Once you have the training plan and you've defined who's going to do it, you can have the new hire take responsibility for making sure that they're getting scheduled, they're meeting with the right people, they're moving forward, and they are reporting back to whoever they are reporting to. If it's a sales rep and you have a sales manager, they're reporting back to the sales manager. If it's a sales leader, they're reporting back to the owner. So it truly is thinking about the fact that you don't have to do it all. You have to have architected the plan, and once you have done that, then let them move forward and do it.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. Thank you so much. And then, is there any tip? Now, I know this is a bonus question. So now we're done with hiring. Now we have onboarded the person using all these best practices. Now we want to make sure that this well-trained person who we now have in our system, we got to be able to retain that person. So any tip on improving your retention ratio of your top talent?
To me, retention begins with hiring someone who fits your culture of your company, and then coaching and managing them well. With sales and sales people, I'll talk about sales people versus sales leaders. With sales people, coaching and continually developing them, helping them to be successful is the way that you will retain them. The fastest way you will lose them is changing their compensation plan so they're losing money. That's not to say you can't change their comp plans, and in fact, we recommend that you change them annually so that you have that flexibility, but you always want an eye for how it is impacting the salesperson. Knowing what motivates them and staying focused on their motivation will help to retain them. So coach and develop them based on how they are motivated. With sales leaders, it's letting them lead their team, not always looking over their shoulder. I can tell you many stories, but anybody could be listening to your podcast. So Sunny, I'm not going to tell some that come to mind. But with a sales leader, you want to trust, but verify. Trust that they can do the job, verify that they can based on monitoring the reporting and the plans that they've got. Make sure that they have a solid sales plan in place. That's how you can validate. But let them manage their team. And if they're not strong at coaching and managing, then get them coaching and management training so they can be more successful in coaching and managing your team. Mm-hmm. Those are the ways that you'll retain your staff.
And thank you so much for joining me. And I know you will be coming to Build It, so look forward to seeing you at our annual conference, Build It 2022, at the end of July. I always call it the best city on this earth is New York City, and the experience of New York City and Wall Street with a farmer heart is what we shoot for, that we give so much love and so much world-class experience to our attendees. And so we look forward to hosting you there and making sure that you experience what I just described.
We look forward to being there, Sunny.